We're in an early JK, and this JK has an engine that we haven't talked a whole lot about. It's the L99. The L99 is basically the same engine as the LS3, but it has variable valve timing and air fuel management. Basically, if you got a Camaro SS and it had an automatic transmission, you would get the L99. If you got the manual transmission, you would have got the LS3. The LS3 is a simpler engine. It does not have variable valve timing, which means the front timing cover is less complex. It doesn't have the phasing solenoid and other components associated with VVT. Being a Gen 4 motor, it's not continuous VVT, it's just a two-position cam. But it definitely has an effect. We're finding that if you tune these VVT motors, you get really good bottom end. So while not that much of an advantage over the non-VVT motors, because the non-VVT motors run slightly higher compression, I think there is a slight advantage. This engine also has air fuel management, so it has the lifter manifold assembly, AFM lifters. So most of the guys that are serious about performance go with the LS3, because the LS3 does not have AFM or VVT, making it more reliable in a race situation. However, after all the years of making these engines, these L99s are very reliable. You can basically think of it as an L94 truck motor. The L94 truck motor also has VVT and AFM. It just has a taller intake. So we like the L99. It's a great motor. With VVT, I think it has a slight torque advantage over the LS3. The LS3 obviously has the advantage of being a simpler engine, so if you were going to race it, run it hard, it would be your choice. But on the street in a heavy JK, I think the L99 is right up there with the LS3. It'd be difficult to choose which one to go with. Rather than talk more about the old technology, which we've been doing for nearly a decade, we're going to talk about some of the new projects we have in the shop and some of the new products we hope to release by the end of this year. I don't have a timeline on these. All I can say is that we're working on them diligently. Most of you know we have a JL in the shop. We have not worked on it in several weeks. We dropped the body a couple of weeks ago, fired the motor up, it ran great, and haven't touched it since. We've got too many other builds and projects going on, but we hope to get back to them. Our goal with that build is to put the awesome LT engine into the JL and keep it emissions compliant, something we can't do with a Gen 4 motor. By keeping it emissions compliant and going with the GM 8-speed transmission, I think it's going to be the ultimate combination in the JL. I was recently blown away with an LT1 8-speed that we had done, just how well it ran, and the customer says he's getting really good economy with it. It's going to be the future, and I think the JL, being the new Wrangler, requires the latest and greatest technology, not only to keep it legal, but to stay one step ahead of the other technology that's out there. And with direct injection and CVVT, there's not much out there that'll outperform the LTs. We've been selling kits to put LS motors in JKs for about 8 or 9 years now, and the kit has changed dramatically over the years. It's really gone from something that was specialty install to almost plug and play. But there's still a ways to go, and I'm going to describe where we're going with it. Now, this does not take away anything from the current kit. The current kit is not only functional, but I still think is a good value. But we're going to talk about something I'm going to call the smart kit. And out there in the market, a lot of things have been changing. So the direction we've gone is to try to make this thing as affordable and as easy as possible. Motec basically pioneered this bridge technology many, many years ago, and we refined it ever since. Everybody has their own take on this. Some guys are hybriding, putting the LS inside of a Chrysler operating system. We choose to stay pure with GM. We have gone to a CAN interface versus a discrete analog bridge. But where we're going now, and we've actually got a prototype in the shop, is our smart kit. Our smart kit is basically going to eliminate redundancies. Our smart kit is going to eliminate the Jeep PCM, that is, the Jeep computer. Therefore, we have a single module system, no longer a piggyback or a 2-module system. At the same time, we're eliminating the redundant fuse block, so the GM side will not have its own fuse block anymore. We'll be using the fuses in the tip-em, just like the factory Jeep. So what we've done now is we've essentially reduced this down to a single module engine control system. So now the module count is similar to a factory JK. The install, the look, will look just like a factory JK. Now there's an upside and a downside to this. In order to fully understand what we're doing, In addition to eliminating the redundant engine module and fuse block, we are reducing the wiring down to just a handful of wire. We are literally making a small MOCAN bridge that will act as the Jeep PCM and the GM BCM. This will give us all the functionality we need: air conditioning, cruise control. This bridge will be able to operate pretty much any fan you want. That would include the Pentastar fan, the GM fan, and we're not talking about just running these fans on high or medium. We're talking about properly running these fans. Parallel with this smart kit is going to be the use of unmodified GM components. What that means is the engine control module, the calibrations, and the harnesses will all be factory GM. This means you can either purchase an over-the-counter GM harness, we can supply the harness in the kit, or you can use your donor harness if it's in good shape. And in addition to the main harness, we're just going to have a small interface harness that bridges between the Chrysler and the GM side. Nothing should be affected in the interior. You should have to make no interior mods, no shifter, no cluster. This is going to give you the option of supplying your own components, and that's going to reduce the parts count in our kit to just a handful of items. Now, we are going to include our billet brackets. You will be reusing your original AC hoses, power steering lines, and accessories. On the Pentastar JKs, you will be using early accessories. However, we are working on integrating the Pentastar accessories. What this smart kit is going to do is something nothing in this market segment has done before. Stay legal, use all OE components, no hybriding, no redundant components, no redundant fuse blocks, no redundant modules. This is going to be a clean, single module system. I think we can look at this as revolutionary instead of evolutionary, because the way we've been approaching this swap and others for years was either you ran the LS inside of a Chrysler operating system, or you piggybacked and ran two operating systems. This is going to reduce that down to one simple operating system, and the interface will be done all electronically through the CAN networks. Obviously, the price of the kit is going to drop if we don't supply things like the engine harness, programming, ECMs, and you supply your own. However, if you choose for us to supply the whole package, including a new GM harness, new computer pre-programmed, then the price is going to be similar to what the price is today. So there is no free lunch. The price will be cheaper if we supply less components and you can supply more of your own components. If you got a new crate engine, you probably just want to buy the full kit. We're going to supply the new harness, programming, computers, etc. So I think this is exciting news for the Wrangler swap segment. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We do have a prototype running right now that we are testing the single module system on, and you will be seeing that in an upcoming video. I'm going to mention this quickly. We do hope to offer a diesel. We're not going to use the Cummins 2.8, it's not legal. We're not going to use a 4BT, not legal. We're going to use a US EPA certified light duty truck diesel in the JK that makes sense. It's not excessively heavy, it doesn't vibrate, it's going to fit the JK well. This is a project I've been wanting to do for a while, but there really has not been an appropriate engine for this conversion, so we've held off until there has been one, and now there is. With all the other projects and R&D we have going on in the shop, this project has been pushed off. Diesel is a love-hate, and even with manufacturers, Chrysler is dropping diesels around the world in favor of gas engines, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Diesels are more expensive to maintain, they're more expensive to purchase. Some consider the drivability not as good as gasoline. The reality is gasoline motors are getting better and better and better, and diesel motors are getting choked down. So the gap in economy, mileage, and torque is shrinking. So the diesel project is definitely going to happen. It's on the shelf right now until we get some time to devote to it, but we're hoping by the end of this year we'll have a running prototype. We are working on a right-hand drive JK. We have a lot of interest down under, South Africa, New Zealand. We're going to properly support this swap with hardware and electronics that fit the right-hand drive vehicle. We're going to try to address the issues that the Aussies have with their engineering, which is different than our requirements here in the States. We have a full-time electrical engineer in the shop just doing R&D development. Our electrical engineer is spending most of his time on CAN coding. As we rely more and more on the CAN, we're removing and eliminating hardware integration. Especially as we move into the JL, the CAN network has become more and more important. Almost everything on the JL is run through the CAN, whether it's the shifter, the instrument cluster, fan control. So we have to work with the CAN. We can't ignore it. So that's where we're focusing our efforts. So our short-term goal, at least through the end of the summer, is going to be to get our smart kit with our single module, single power distribution center system online and get the JL on the road for road testing. I do believe the LT is going to be a big hit in the JL. Driving these LTs and the JKs is awesome, and integrating it into the JL to keep the JL legal along with the 8-speed GM transmission. And for our friends in the Republic of California, which is actually my home, know that we are working diligently to try to make these swaps available to you. There's still a lot of ambiguity in California that we are trying to eliminate by working with the authorities over there, so stay tuned for that. We're going to hit the mountain with this Jeep, and we'll see you next time.